everybody. Welcome to downtown Lake Las Vegas. No, I'm not in Las Vegas anymore. Where the heck did I go? I went to Lake Vancouver. We're in Lake Vancouver, not the real Vancouver. This is the pretty cute Vancouver, the one that has little grocery stores that sell you things like muffins, not the one that has little, hockey players that sell you things like teeth. But today I am probably fangirling a little too much on this one, but we have one of my favorite human beings on the planet who I finally get to meet via you guys, Miss Melanie Chartoff, who I'm already going, oh my God, in my brain, who is not only was she on one of my favorite TV shows when I was years old back in the 19, I said 19. Now we're not that old. And but when I saw her as a child, as a mere youthling of 4 years old, going through puberty and figuring out my life, I said, this is the woman I want to be like. This is the one. This is the one who gets me. She was as smart as George Carlin, but as beautiful as Grace Kelly. And I thought, damn, that's what I want to do. I got half of that right. I'm as pretty as George Carlin and as funny as Grace Kelly. So, so I would like to introduce you to my dear new friend, Miss Melanie Chartoff, who is also going to talk to us about lots of lovely things, including her years in Rugrats. And I think we're going to start with conversing about one of her newest projects, which is an Andy Kaufman documentary. If that's all right with you.
Yes, yes. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that lavish praise. And it seems sincere. It seems sincere to all of you. It seems sincere to me. Yes, I'm in Thank You Very Much, which is a documentary on Apple about Andy Kaufman. It's the first documentary about Andy Kaufman. There have been documentaries made about the making of The Man in the Moon, which is the Andy Kaufman, James Carey led biopic about him, but never actually documentaries. So this is a very sobering kind of last third of his life. And I was privileged and troubled to be a part of it. And there's Danny DeVito, Mary Lou Henner, Steve Martin. We all have experiences with Andy that we like to talk about. So
Elaine Boonsler, I think, had some amazing stories too.
Yes.
Yeah. There's so many stories that came in. That's beyond the Mighty Mouse bit on Saturday Night Live back in the 70s. Yeah.
Yeah. He was something. So that's part of what's going on. And I'm also fortunate enough to be in the narrating the Passover episode of the Passover special on Rugrats. So I'm hearing from a lot of people this week who are looking forward to watching this perennial episode at Seder. It's a very special. It was the first animated Jewish holiday television show.
I did not know that.
So that was.
I'm an atheist. So I did not realize there weren't any Jewish television shows. That's kind of sad. Animated.
It was the first.
That's sad.
It was the first animated.
Yeah, that's excellent. So tell me about that. Tell me about what you want to tell me about, because I'm just still fangirling over here.
Well, right now the business is kind of constricted here in Los Angeles because of the strikes, because of the pandemic, and because of the new regime. So there's a constriction going on. So an artist has to do independent things, to keep oneself above water. So I'm writing a book. It's a sci-fi social satire. Because of the new administration, it is spot on for its time. It's kind of wacky and crazy and wild.
Did you plan it to be parallel to the new administration, or was that something you had already started writing before that happened?
Accidentally. I mean, for example, there's a show on right now with Robert De Niro called 0 Day, which accidentally parallels so much of what's gone on the last year. Of course, it was planned and shot before this last year, but arts do have a way of predicting prophetically events of the day. And so my book, which I've been working on for a couple of years, does sort of coordinate with the chaos of today. So I'm trying to get an agent. I'm trying to get a publisher. If anybody out there is connected, let me know.
Yes, and there's a lot of sci-fi people and a lot of writers that listen to this and watch the podcast. So I'm sure we will tap you into somebody.
That would be nice. It's also a sort of a pilot for a streamer. I think it's a streaming series.
Excellent.
And in its time. But we'll see. There's a long road to go before it gets published or gets represented. So we'll see. But that's what I'm captivated by right now. And I just came from New Haven, where I'm from, to see my mom for her 101st birthday.
Wow.
So
Mom's
it's
still
been a
around.
celebratory.
Wow. At 101.
Yeah, and her brain's still there. If she can hear you, you can have a really good conversation with my mom. And she lives in just right outside New Haven in a really great assisted living facility. So I'm very pleased that she's had a very comfortable last 17 years there.
That's
it really kept her
amazing.
going.
I got introduced to your mom via, I'm going to show this off here. I had highlighted this book to death. So for those who could see this, this is, oh, now I got a green screen, but here, I'll put it back here. It's Melanie's wonderful book, Odd Woman Out. And I got to tell you, meeting your mom in here and hearing some of your stories, we have very parallel lives in so many ways, my darling.
What?
Especially when it comes to the conversations with the mother about the bodies and things of that nature, and our personal histories with the men folk and what they have done for our careers and our lives and all that other stuff. So can you talk a little bit of why you started writing in the first place? This in the book you mentioned this Tuesday workshop group, and I used to run writing groups, so I love this idea.
I've written on many, many shows that I've been in. I mean, I've always written, I've always, worked on poetry, comedy poetry. I've been published in the New York Times, in Jewish Journal, in Funny Times, in Rye Times.
And Chicken Soul books.
My Chicken Soup for the Soul book just came out. It's called What I Learned from My Dog, and I have a lovely story in there. So I've always written. I wrote on Fridays a little bit when they let me.
I was going to say.
Male-dominated. It was a little male-dominated perspective, and I wasn't shooting drugs or smoking dope, staying up all night with the guys, so I didn't get as much material on as others might have. But anyway, I've been in various writers' groups, and the writers' group I was in when I was writing these stories encouraged me to perform. So I was doing these shows at Comedy Central, reading several of the stories, standalone stories at various theaters around town for charity, stuff like that. And a literary agent came and said, this is a book. You should really put it together into a book. And the reason I wrote the book was because I met the man of my dreams in my 60s. And when we got engaged and we went to New York, people would say, we've saw television and then I said, well, I just got engaged, and they would say, oh, you give me hope, because they were career girls, sometimes in their 40s, 50s, and I said, don't give up, love is out there, just keep loving yourself until somebody gets it. So I wrote it to give other women hope, and a lot of women said it did. It gave them understanding of themselves and some hope, which is a great thing to be able to give.
You were so much smarter than I was. See, I made the stupid mistake of I had the starter husband at 19 when I was in the military. And then I hit 30 and I had another husband. And then I had 40 and I had another husband. But I kept him for a while. So I call it my starter, my gay, my actual, and then now I'm on my very last. Done. On my final husband that I married at 60, just this Friday the 13th around Christmas time.
Oh, happy anniversary. So we do have parallels, but this is my one and only husband.
I know. You were funny. He's so smart.
Well, not necessarily. I just couldn't get it right. I made bad choices. My chooser was broken. I was my kindness preceded my sensibility sometimes, where I knew I could help someone and enjoyed helping someone, which is not always the ideal.
People. Yeah, I can fix.
But this one I actually did fix, so I finally worked it out, and I'm very happy being married. It's just I didn't know it would make such a difference in perspective to have sort of a safe home, really at home.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling, isn't it? When you're like with that somebody and you're like, this isn't so bad. It's I'm used to being by myself, but I think I can handle, the fact that he belches when he watches the news. It's okay.
And I thought I thought we were going to be so close during pandemic, it would be problematic, but it just grew us actually. He is a psychotherapist and he started working on Zoom. So he was in his office and I was in my office doing podcasts for my book because there were no book tours during pandemic.
Ugh.
And, it became really kind of nice to be that close to someone and that constant with someone.
So I'm sure
So,
he's your favorite four-letter S word. I call Fred, my husband, my favorite four-letter F word. So I'm sure Stan is your favorite four-letter S word. So
yes. I call him Stanley Irving. Nobody calls him that, so he always knows it's me calling. But he has a middle name he hates, and I just get a kick out of it. So it's like Washington Irving. I call him Stanley Irving, and
well, you get the hair. That's fun. And how did and you two met like Fred and I met? You guys met online, right?
Oh yeah. Got really lucky. I had forayed into different, online dating sites without too much success, with a lot of mistakes, false attempts. And this is in my book. If you have read it, I'm sorry for repeating it.
No, but please. I actually have that chapter highlighted. So
yeah, I got into a love quadrangle because I was dating a guy. I first met a guy who was my first date, and he was a guitarist and very captivating and lovely. And he had just broken off with a woman he'd been with for like 3 or 4 years, living with her, and they were now best friends. And she was seeing other people. He was seeing other people. I didn't take him that seriously. And then I met Stan, and he told me he was seeing someone. And I said, well, let's take it our time. And he said, but I know she's not the one. I said, well, does she know that? Does she know that? He said, I don't know. I haven't told her yet. And he said, I'll get to it. I'm sure I'll get to it. You know how guys are. I got the sense that every weekend he was busy and he was seeing me weeknights. And I finally said to him, I don't want to be a weeknight girl. I want to be a weekend girl. So when you have that slot available, you come back. I'm going to see my mom. I'm going to New York. He said, I'm going to end it while you're gone. I said, we'll see, but don't call me or write to me until it's really over, because I don't want to be the excuse or the exit strategy or the reason some woman suffers pain.
That's the worst feeling in the world.
Yes, we don't want to betray our sisters. So I was with my mom. Remember, I was in the bathroom and I picked up a message from the guitarist that I had gone out with a couple times. And he said, I hope to see you when you get back. There's some great music to go hear. And are you seeing someone named Stan? And so I wrote back and I said, I am. How did you know that? He said, because my ex is going with him. And he just broke up with her because he said he was going to be going out with you. And I said, what are the odds of this small, incestuous world flashing over like that? So within minutes, I got an email from her on Facebook warning me off of him, saying that Stan was a two-timer and he'd misled her. He'd lied to her. He was very romantic with her. And he used the word love a lot. He does tend to be very effusive with the love word. He loves everything. And
I love peace.
And I wrote her
back. Marry it.
Yeah. I said, I'm sorry, this has caused you pain. I don't know if he's the one for me either, but I hope you find the one for you. And best of luck. And then I thought to myself, this guy's a player. I'm getting out of here before it gets creepy. And I went back to look at his profile on Match.com, and it had been taken down. And it said, maybe he has found the one. Maybe you will too. And then he called and asked if he could pick me up at the airport. My plane was late. I got in about 2-3 in the morning, and he was waiting at the airport. And we've been seeing each other ever since.
Aww.
So
I cried when I read that story because it made me so happy. Because all these other stories were like, these guys are breaking her heart. Oh my goodness! And this one, I was like, oh, it made me cry.
Yeah, there was a lot of that heartbreaking going on. I didn't know how to do things halfway. I didn't really know.
I was the same way. I would 100% go, oh, somebody was nice to me and they invited me to dinner. Oh, that's my boyfriend now. Not thinking, oh, we were just on a date. It's like, oh, when do we move in? That's how I was.
Yeah. Too much heart. We have too much heart sometimes and too much love to give.
Yeah. So we didn't get it when we were younger. It's like, it's all here. I just want to give it to somebody.
Right. So anyway, I've been very lucky. I was a dreamer when I had a kid. I wanted to be a writer and actor, and pretty much it's been coming true. And I wanted to be married and have kids. So I have stepkids instead. And I hope to be a step grandmother someday, get the babies in the lap without being fully responsible.
You can put them right back. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a song about that. I have a one-woman musical that I made once I finished this book. I just did it a few months ago here in Los Angeles for friends.
Are you gonna tour? Are you gonna tour with your show, or are you just gonna do it in the city in LA?
Honesty, I think it's so much more controlled if you film it. If you get a film and have it monetized, which is something else I need to work on and learn about, and have it downloadable, to me, that's easier than actually taking the body out on the road, flying here and there, doing one night stands with unpredictable conditions. The lighting isn't right, the angles aren't right, the sound system isn't right. It's being on the road is really strenuous unless you have a roadie, you have a road manager, which I probably wouldn't have.
Now, do you play a piano while you're doing this too, or do you just sing on the mic and somebody else plays for you?
No, I hire. So I'm not able to do two things at once.
I'm the same way.
Singing and I'm not able to produce myself. It's really hard. There are a lot of young people who are influencer who, like Randy Rainbow. I'm sure you've seen Randy Rainbow.
Yes, especially his parodies of the Trump's whole world. It's just brilliant.
He does all that technology himself. He films himself in the different positions. He harmonizes. He's just really remarkably good at that. And he sings beautifully and he writes beautifully. I don't think I have the wherewithal to do all those things at one time. So, we'll see if I find an impresario or somebody to help me out with that.
That's brilliant. That's so exciting. That's very exciting, actually. I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I've been waiting. Go. Tell me.
The show is called Many Minds, One Mouth. And it's about having so many different characters in my head with only one mouth to funnel them through that it made me very complicated. And still, I'm not somebody who's been able to only do one thing for very long. I get bored and then I want to go to the other thing. And then I want to go to the other thing. So I tend to jump around. I specialize in one thing intensely, like this book I'm just about to finish. Then I'll probably go sing for a while. And then maybe travel somewhere. I'm doing a Comic-Con in Oxford, England at the end of July. And then I'm doing another Comic-Con it's in Eastern Connecticut at a casino called the Mohegan Sun.
My brother will be selling comics there.
Yeah. It's a reservation and it's supposed to be wonderful. So I'll be there for 3 days. If you're in the neighborhood, please come and see me. I do the voices, for people's phone messages, and I push my book. I push my book really hard. My book Odd Woman Out, which
it's such a good book that you have to buy 2 copies because you will be filling it up with all of your yellow underlines, and then you're going to have to make sure you get other copies because other women in your life are going to want to read it. I know because I've already bought 4 more copies for other women in my life. So there you go.
Thank you so much, Aunty. I mean, that's amazing. Thank you. It's available on Audible. It's an 8-hour book. I perform the whole thing. I do all the characters. I do all the singing. So if you're driving to and from San Francisco, for example, it's perfect company for that ride.
Yeah.
So
yes. And your voice is gorgeous, by the way. Not just your character voices, but your singing voice is gorgeous. So it really is. It's like I'm just blown away by you. I just am. I'm so in awe of your it's just intrinsic talent that that even as a child, you must have been going, this is bursting out of me. I got to share it with the world. You just know.
I wanted to be in all the plays. Thank you. Yeah. And I was on all the school plays. I did musicals and summer stock. I was on soap operas while I was in college. So I was really lucky to get a kind of a head start while I was in college. My college was located on Long Island in Garden City. It was called Adelphi. And the best thing about Adelphi, forgive me, is that you could get right on the Long Island Railroad on campus and go right into New York City, right into Penn Station. So I was able to audition for summer stock and work in musicals in Cape Cod and upstate New York, for all those college years. And I was able to get on soap operas like One Life to Live and All in the Family and The Doctors and Search for Tomorrow. I was on all those shows and really get a feel for
do you
what
have
it
the
was
soap
like.
opera stand down? I know that after, like, that's one of the my friend Hillary used to have to do a soap opera stare when they cut her between scenes. Just
You never do that on regular TV. What they call it is lens meet.
yeah,
Lens meet is roiling beneath the surface, strategizing, thinking. Never have a blank face when the camera's on you. They're going to edit it right out. But on soap operas, I guess you can get away with that. I never could.
yeah.
I
She
always
would just tell
thought,
me she would be thinking about, did I buy groceries? Did I get the milk? Did I get cottage cheese?
right, right. I was in a Broadway show for 6 months, and between the matinee and the evening show on stage, I realized I was thinking about what I was going to eat for dinner before shows. And then I knew I've got to do some homework and make this alive for myself again, because things get stale when you're in a long run, and you have to come into it stupid. Like, this has never happened before. I do not know what's going to happen next. I don't know what that person's going to say to me, so that everything is a surprise. Even your own thought is a surprise. And that's what keeps it fresh, keeps it alive.
Are you familiar
Otherwise,
with Marianne Plunkett, the actress Marianne
the
Plunkett?
name.
She's a Broadway gal too. She's originally from Boston. And we auditioned for a three penny opera together with Geraldine Fitzgerald. And I learned what auditioning for Geraldine Fitzgerald was like, which was goddess worship for me. But for Marianne, she's like, I'm in this play. She just walked in, went on that audition, like, this is my play, and I'm performing for Geraldine, and she got the role, and she was brilliant. But she would say things like that. She would, like, I would pick somebody in the audience and say, this person has never seen the show before. I'm going to be that person in my head for a few minutes. And then she'd do the show. And I love that.
Yeah, the Three Penny Opera was actually the first professional show I ever did at Yale University. They needed some young hookers, and I was a virgin. I had no breasts. I mean, I was, raw, and they turned me into this kind of desperate young prostitute who's trying to be sexy and hasn't got a clue, and walking wider than she had hips for, and trying to look sexy. It was a very funny bit, and so Three Penny Opera haunts me. I love the music. Kurt Weill, Bertolt Brecht's story, wonderful, often revived because it's always relevant.
Oh, yes.
And was Geraldine Fitzgerald directing that on
Yes.
Broadway?
Yes, it was in Boston. And Andrew McGoddle was supposed to be in it, but she had an incident, which we won't discuss because now she's a grown up and things have changed. So they recast. And Marianne Plunkett took the role, and she wowed it, and she ended up in Broadway because of that, which was amazing.
Wonderful.
And again, that's the perfect. Oh, you'll love her. You'll absolutely love her. She also did Law and Order and all that stuff. She's absolutely brilliant. She's one of my top 10. I wish I could be like her when I grow up. If I grow up, I don't think I'm gonna. I think I'm done. I think I've decided to stay my youthful 60-something-year-old self.
Yeah, let's stay right here.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really liked about your writing is you were talking about aging. Like, even though you weren't talking about aging, you'd start a story with how old you were at the time. And I thought, this is interesting. This is kind of a pattern. And then the very lyrically write about that time. And I thought, and now you're mentioning that you had songs about these things, I think, yeah, that makes sense to me now. But you would lyrically mention how old you were and how you carried yourself, and how you walked almost in some of these stories. And I could see it, feel it, and I could almost see the progression of you as a human being just growing throughout your life here. And it was just gorgeous watching your timeline, just feeling it.
My God, you're a perfect audience. You're a singular one person audience, and your experience really fills me with joy. Really, it's so nice to know what your experience was
Well,
going through, and you really took the ride. You really took the trip.
Well, yeah, you were one of the people I wanted to like. Carol Burnett was one of them. I wanted to learn about Carol Burnett, and the only book I have of hers is a golden book, a child's book about Carol Burnett, which you can get on Amazon for like $5. And but I've seen her perform live so many times, and I got to audition for her for one of her shows 100 years ago, back in the 1990s. Yeah, 90s, when she revived her show. And she already had people she already knew she was going to work with, but you had to do open auditions. So I got in there and I got to audition for Carol Burnett. And I sat there looking at her, just going, she gets what it's like to not have to be somebody other than herself. And that's hard. And I don't know how to do that yet. So I just watched and learned from her just in that audition process. And
I was in a
yeah, in your book, I was watching, you do that too, learning how to be just yourself.
I was in a mini series, fortunately, with Carol Burnett, Terry Garr, may she rest in peace.
Oh,
What a doll.
love her.
Dabney Coleman, may he rest in peace. What a hilarious person. Chuck Roden, may he rest in peace. I hope they're all having a funny party up there.
All right.
Is Carol still with us? It was called Fresno, and it was a parody of Dallas. So it was a nighttime soap about the raisin industry.
Uh-huh.
And in the pivotal plot point was that someone is murdered and then they're boxed and dehydrated in a small, like, raisinette box,
And I
in
have it
boxes
on
of raisins.
DVD.
And that you can find that on YouTube, I believe. It was a big hit in London. Somehow it didn't work as well here. I'm not sure they knew it was supposed to be funny, but so when they played it here, they put a laugh track on it, which to me just kind of ruined the whole thing. Clearly Carol Burnett is very funny, even when she's serious, and everybody in it's wonderful. Bill Paxton, may he rest in peace,
Oh,
was also in it.
I know.
I too quickly. So anyway, I had the honor of being on that set every day with those people, and it was just a thrill.
Oh,
Just a
you must have
thrill.
been tickled. I,
A lot of my stuff is in the can. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it actually Fridays, the show that I was in with Larry David and Michael Richards is now running on Amazon Prime. So you can watch my history unfold.
which
Um,
which was
and
amazing.
Well, it had its moments. I
I
mean, like
I
Saturday
was
Night Live.
I felt I had a started I live audition back 100 years ago too. Um, I got beat out by some loud kid, chubby kid. What was his name? Chris something. Anyway, so I got beat out by this guy, Chris somebody. Uh, but much like you, it was Chris Farley. Much like you, it was I walked in and I could see, yeah, men were like, okay, this is the guy I want to work with. This is the guy I want to work with. This is the guy I want to work with. But when the women walked in, it was like, oh, I wonder what she's gonna look good in. you know, you know, how is she gonna pair up against this guy? Is she gonna pair up with this one? Is this gonna work against this type? Can we put her on the newscast? Can we do this? Can we do that? It was never what can you write, like they were asking all the guys. It was always what are you gonna look like? Which made me insane because at the time I was skinny and I looked like a Pez dispenser, but yeah.
Yeah, I auditioned. Jane Curtin and I were in an off-Broadway improvised musical called The Proposition, and it was running off Broadway. And then the theater collapsed during the night. The Broadway Central Theater collapsed, so the show was gone. It was over. And she and I both had an audition for Saturday Night Live the first day. It was before it went on the air, of course, 1975.
Uh-huh.
And she got it. And when she got it, I thought to myself, well, she'll be great. And I should be on a show like this too.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, I was in the Jane Curtin newscaster seat. So it was oddly parallel. But I've had good fortune with visualizing, creative visualization. It doesn't always manifest exactly when I want it to or need it to. In fact, the less needful I am of it, the more likely I have laid the petri dish for it to happen. Because need chases it away.
Yeah.
Acceptance that you already have attracts it. So I learned that lesson. Did a lot of creative visualization work and reading, and It takes a while, but most all the generalities have come true.
That's amazing.
So lucky.
Right.
Yeah, lucky.
And
Religion, like you, religion didn't really do it for me. I never found my family were atheist agnostics, so there was really no pressure, to go to shul, to go to any kind of religious ceremony. So
right.
the theater became my town. Theater
That
was a place where everybody ardently believed in the same fake story for months and months together, and then, unlike religion, we'd go on to a new story while they
right.
keep telling the same old story. Like I'm going to Seder at my sister-in-law, the rabbi's house this Saturday. And I know we'll tell the same old stories. And why do we eat the bitter herbs? Or why do we still have to eat the bitter herbs? I have a lot of questions that don't come up in the four questions. Um, why do we eat this day? Why not have something else?
And
But
and have you
anyway,
asked these questions to the rabbi?
I think everybody asks those questions to the rabbi. She's
Yeah.
very reformed.
Oh, okay.
Her congregation is extremely liberal, extremely talkative. So, she's always being asked about Palestine and Israel. It's the hardest question for any rabbi or any human being to answer.
Yeah.
These treaties that have gone back thousands of years, where did they begin and who was the lawyer? It's just impossible to solve this situation. It's truly tragic.
And when do people stop being titles and start being people again? Stop being your label and start being humanity. That's the hardest part. That's and what this whole world that we're living in right now is so. We got a guy who's sitting in the White House talking about nuclear war like it's chocolate. It's just insanity. Um, and so there's people like me and like you who reach into the arts and grab into it like it's our heartbeat, and like this is what's going to keep us whole. This is what's going to keep us whole. And I totally understand that type of thinking. And part of the reason why I started this show is because I wanted to reach to other people that are kind of having that same vibe of, I don't know where to go in this world. Everything's so fucked up. Excuse my Irish, but it's everything so, to paraphrase the Jewish faith, Mashugana. So actually not paraphrasing, just phrasing. Um, I a story that kind of went into my head when you were talking about that was that one of my first jobs that wasn't creative was when I was 14, 15. I was in theater and did all the TV and everything that I did as a child because you have to pay bills for your family when you're a kid, apparently. Uh, but one of my first real jobs was I worked as a nursing assistant in the Hebrew Rehabilitation Center for the Aged in West Roxbury, Massachusetts, which is a little part of Boston, right next to the Arboretum, right next to Jamaica Pond, really gorgeous part of the city. But the people that were there, the floor that I was on was the seniors that had gone through mental anguish that they couldn't repair, and it was all tattoos, and they were all Auschwitz survivors, Dachau survivors. And I learned, this is where I learned how to be an atheist. I learned more about the idea that the arts save people. This one woman, Esther, who I'll never forget, had her son bring her a grand piano into her tiny little hospital room that she lived in, uh, uh, and that was what kept her from losing it, from being back in 1940 Germany. It was just horrifying to me. And I feel like we're kind of echoing that right now in this world, even though people don't realize it, that anybody off the street can be taken and brought to El Salvador, or brought to whoever, Venezuela or whoever, because there's people that don't care about you as a human being. So what keeps you sane? You keep that little art in you, that little tiny ability to draw, that little tiny ability to you sing a little bit. You keep some sort of soul keepers, a soul mask to kind of hold you in there. And I think when I was thinking about and again, back to your book, because your book is so beautiful. I was reading some of the stories about how shitty your kidhood was, and like how shitty my kidhood was, and the shit we had to deal with, and the people we had to deal with, and it's like just that little grain of art just pulled you out just enough so you didn't turn into the people that become these assholes that start all this crazy stuff. It was so that was my cheerful hey happy note for today.
No, I completely agree. With art, without art, singing, dancing, music, and appreciating that of others, I don't think I would have made it. Really, it's my drug. I mean, I was coaching someone today. By the way, my other career is I coach young actors on Zoom, and sometimes if they here in my house. But I teach charismatizing, improvising in my yard all
I love
summer.
that name. Tell me about that.
Well, it's improv is a wonderful art form. I really think it's therapeutic. Everyone should do it. My classes last year were all therapists who all needed to get out of the chair and the questioning and being in control and go nuts. I have all kinds of folks participating, but a lot of improv companies teach you to be a utilitarian artist, to be anyone, to play the doctor, the nurse, the fireman. But my class also gives you the added extra of being charismatic so that you can either star or you can be an extra. So you can go both ways. You can be ambidextrous in terms of personality. There's introverts, there's extroverts. This is ambivert that we're going for.
I
So you
love
can
it.
be recessive and just listen, or you can be forefront and soar and star and be stellar. So I teach charismatizing, improvising in live classes, but I also teach it as an acting teacher. I give people the permission to go deep and swell up with an imaginary story to the point that you are captivated by their stillness. Their very stillness is captivating because they are so in another story. So that's something I offer. If you go to my website, charismatizing.com, you can see information about me, hear testimonials from former students.
And we're going to make sure
And
every single link is going to be on the page in our website, auntisocial.com, so everybody can find you.
That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, I love to work with actors, younger actors or inexperienced actors and voice actors. And to me, that's a great escape, another great escape. And I help teach people how to escape themselves, how to not be self-conscious, how to turn their lens inside rather than out as to who's watching, just to take it inside into a pretend magic world. So that's another thing that I like.
Now, did you have that voice in the back of your head? Well, you were very, very, good about going for what you wanted to get into the theater and into music and into dance even. Do you have that voice in the back of your head saying, I don't know if you should really be doing this? Yes, you should. No, I know. Do you have that at all? Or is that something you've worked through?
I had a lust for performing that was louder than any self-consciousness. Now, there were periods in my life where I was with an all-male cast or all-male writers where I was taught to self-doubt or not believe in my way of doing it or my writing. But no, I kind of was born with a top hat and tails. I mean, I think I must have been a real problem. Yeah, I came out ready to dance and sing and make people laugh. And my parents were somewhat depressive. Maybe you can identify. And it was kind of a responsibility for my little sister and I to be fun and light and lively. And so,
is Norma in the arts at all,
my
your sister? No.
sister's very gifted scene designer. She and her husband, who's a technical director, taught those skills at Wagner College on Staten Island for many years. And then since then, they moved over to SUNY, City University of New York, and ran what became, instead of theater arts, it became entertainment technology. They no longer teach the craft of building miniatures, making a little set like a little dollhouse, building from there. It's 3D generated and laser created and 3D printing. It's a whole new art form. As a matter of fact, I was in a show a few years ago, and the lighting director came up to me and said, how long will it take you to resolve that last note? And it's like, well, I don't know. It happens different every rehearsal. I can't really say. It depends on the emotional thrust. And he said, well, I'm setting the computer now for it's going to decrescendo with you and it'll go out. What point do you want it to go out? I said, you can't just do it manually. along with me, and then we will coordinate. And he said, I'm sorry, I'm programming the computer now. So all the light cues will be
Oh, wow.
robotic, and you just adapt to that. So it's a whole new technology now. When kids go to SUNY to learn about theater craft, they're learning about it so they can do concerts and Dungeons and Dragons, video games,
Yeah.
and those sorts of things, rather than the craft of theater that I was raised in and just loved.
And you
It's
ended up in
different.
voice too. I mean, going from theater to voice is a whole different animal as well.
Well, I was doing I was on a show called Parker Lewis Can't Lose. I played an insane principal of a crazy high school.
You were
And while I was
hilarious.
doing that,
You were hilarious.
it was so much fun to be the villain. It was so much fun to be the bitch. I just love that show. And then meanwhile, I got to balance out by being a neurotic mother. I was playing my mother, on Rugrats. My mother's voice is like mine, only it's sped up. It's like 78 RPM. So, I have her over here. Wait, I have her right here. This girl.
There she is. There she is.
Petey Pickles. Bought the house. Petey Pickles. Yes, I own everything.
My stepdaughter at the time used to walk around doing Tommy and Chucky, and I would just die just because I would just hear the mom's voice in my head saying, "Stop that now." She was great.
Yeah, my mother was kind of, in the it was the first animated show I ever read for, lucky me. And in the script it said, that she was kind of repressed and anxious and eager to do a good job. And that's very much like my mom, sort of a repressed anxiety, but interested in doing the right thing, really wanting it to go perfectly. So it was an easy fit. So I bought her a condo. Bought her a condo, but a lot of the money I earned has been spent on keeping my mom happy.
Well, yeah, I just
seems fitting.
This is funny because this is the glasses I usually wear in my show, and they are very much like your character in the Rugrats. They crack me up.
He has glasses, really.
I saw
iridescent.
I just thought those were like, they're my glasses. And I have people now asking me about them. Where do you get your glasses? Temu by the bucket. So, what else do you got going on? You've got so much going on. You're busier than most people I know in their 20s. This is amazing to me. This is fabulous.
Well, the cameras aren't rolling, so I'm not doing any big projects right now, but I did do a short film recently called The Cutoff, which is showing at festivals, winning audience awards all over the country. At film festivals in Florida and Woodstock and Los Angeles recently. And that was my first short film. It's just a 20-minute premise, kind of a proof of concept for a feature.
Are you directing really it as well? Or just, oh no, you're just acting in it? It's just acting.
I play an old lady bitching about everybody at the event, complaining about the food, complaining about, the way people are dressing. They show everything now, one of those kind of characters. And it was really fun. So that's the most recent film work I've done. There's just not many auditions, especially for babes my age. I mean, there's just not much going on right now. I got delirium tremens, but I haven't been drunk. I'm shaking in a quick and staggering round in a funk. I don't want to think, it only gets me confused. I've given up drink.
I first studied, I think I told you this when I first hunted you down online, is that part of the reason why I learned improv is because watching sketch comedy and you in particular, and Carol Burnett in particular. And actually, I don't know if Mark Blankfield was being a sexist on the Fridays set, but he used to be, to me in my brain, I used to think he was Buster Keaton. He just reminded me of Buster Keaton. And he actually was somebody I thought, oh, he would be great on a show. And then I looked him up and was like, oh my God, he died 2 years ago. That was horrible. How could I have not known that? There's somebody I was like admiring of. That was so sad.
His wife Brandis also gone.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a blight. So many of the funniest people I know are now in comedy heaven, I suppose.
Well, my first improv teacher was Amy Schreiber, so I was very lucky. I got to study with some of the Big Second City people.
Jack Burns.
Yeah, Jack was Jack.
Jack.
Yeah, Schreiber and Burns.
Yeah, so I used to hang out with Burns and Schreiber. After our shows, Avery would come by and we would hang out. He's gone too.
Yeah.
Sorry, so many gone.
I used to sit and watch. I worked at the Improv Santa Monica 100 years ago. And before my sets every night, I would see Charlie Callis. We're talking old time comedy now, folks. Charlie Callis would sit there by himself at I can't remember Tony Roma's with his onion rings and his big pieces of meat, and that would be his whole night. And nobody recognized him, but I did. Nobody talked to him, but I did. It was like,
that's so funny. Bob Chartoff, who is not related to me, may he rest in peace too, was Charlie Callis's manager for many years after he was his agent at William Morris.
Wow.
And then Charlie Callis was one of his first talent clients. And Bob, of course, went on to produce Raging Bull, The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight, Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a lot of films. I was going to change my name when I was... Huh?
Yeah, very tiny career.
I was going to change my name when I first came to New York. I thought Melanie and Chartoff, they don't go together at all. But then when his films came out, I thought, I'm going to keep it, and there was an association with beneficial for me, got me in some doors anyway. Still had to get the job.
Which you did because you're extraordinarily talented to this day, which, one of the most awe-inspiring people on the planet. I can't imagine anybody more interesting. Like if they pick the 5 people on a dinner table, like you would definitely be on my list of the 5 people at the dinner table. Mark Twain would be there, just brilliant. Just like there's so much. You're just an encyclopedia of warmth and history and just incredible life experiences that so many people could learn from. And I'm very excited that you're teaching young actors. Like when they come to you for the first time, do they know your history or do they just know little bits and pieces from like Rugrats or?
I met a few at a Comic-Con, so they knew my work. Mm-hmm. But that my work doesn't come into it at all when we work, on scenes. Some just come to me because I'm advertised on Google here and there, and they don't know my history. They just know me as a teacher. I had a young man from China reach to me a couple of years ago. He had seen me in a video in which Stella Adler is coaching me. She was one of my first acting teachers in New York. What a grande dame she was! Oh. My goodness. Yeah. So there's a scene in which she's yelling at the class and coaching me, and then I come through. And so he reached to me, and I coached him for a while, and he really wanted to know Stella Adler technique. And I said, my goodness, I really don't know how to discern what part of my work is her influence and other teachers that I've had. So I had to let him go. But he was trying to learn how to teach Stella Adler technique so he could earn a living in China because he knew he couldn't earn a living as an actor.
Wow.
But he just wanted the manual, basically. He wanted how to teach Stella Adler. And I couldn't really give him that because I don't just use her way of working. I've assimilated.
You got Viola Spolin, you've got, the Meisner tech. I mean, there's so many other techniques to know.
Influences, yeah. And I've distilled and synthesized them in my own teaching. I think I've really got it down now. I have a lot of success stories. People are now doing voiceovers who wanted to do that. I direct their 59-second demo, tapes that they need to put together for an agent.
Yeah, we had Mark Cashman talk to us recently and talking about demos and things, and just telling people don't do a demo until you learn what you need, until you learn what you need to do to be an actor, until you know what you need in business. Yeah.
Mark was a student of mine, actually, in improv for a while.
Wow.
And used some techniques in the booth. So, he's a lovely person. I like Mark a lot. He's very sincere.
Really believes in students, really believes in the people that he's around, which I'm sure you're the exact same. I can't imagine it not. You just seem so authentic and genuine and real and human and girl crush. I'll just walk around really and wave the palm fronds and the tangerine grapes anytime you need. That's all.
You're Melanie. Thank you. You really made my day. That's so sweet. Thank you, Auntie. I really like talking to you. Thanks.
I really enjoyed talking. I know I've taken up a lot of your time today, and I am just in awe of you. And I think everybody should check out your website. Let's go ahead and give it again.
Charismatizing with a Z.com. Charismatizing.com. And my email, through which you can talk to me about the work, is playdate444 at gmail.com.
Well, there you go. So now everybody knows where to say hi to you and learn from you and maybe become almost as talented as you, because nobody can be just as talented as you. It just can't happen. You're a star. And hopefully there'll be people that'll be going to those award shows carrying the big Oscar going, if it wasn't for Melanie Chartoff, I would not know that Oscar weighed 40 pounds. This is what I'm hoping.
I don't know
for you. So, I hope it does. I hope it does. And I'm so tickled to have spoken with you today. For everybody, this has been the Aunty Sochelle Hour-ish show. And do tell your friends about it. And do go to Melanie's site. And hopefully you'll learn a lot more from her than you did just in a little bit of time we got to talk to her today. Thank you so much.